The Anglophone crisis, which is in its fifth year and counting, might still be topping the charts as the most neglected humanitarian crisis in the world. Just like in 2019 and 2020, reports from the Norwegian Refugee Council, the number of deaths recorded from the crisis had long exceeded thousands, with the present statistics unknown to many. However, it is estimated that one or more people die every day in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon as the crisis drags on. As the battle between the Cameroonian army and separatists drags on, the civilians resident in these two regions have to pay the huge price, either with their lives or with their properties. 2021 has seen the death of not only separatists, the Cameroonian army, and most of all, the innocent civilians. Our topic for the day, civilians caught in the separatist battle. This is our topic for the day, and this is the Panafrican Debate. Stay with us. Hello and thanks for joining us on your Pan-African television on this day. It's the Pan-African Debate. We're pleased to know that you're there. Just like always, we are pleased to equally inform you that we shall be live this day on the Pan-African Debate. Thanks for joining us this afternoon as we're discussing the socio-political crisis in Cameroon's two English-speaking regions, the northwest and southwest regions. The crisis in its fifth year and counting is what we're looking at this day as separatists and as the separatists and the Cameroonian army continue to battle in these two regions. Civilians are caught in between this battle. More lives are being lost, with many going unreported. What is the way forward and what is the way out of this crisis, which still drags on? Who is refusing the crisis not to come to an end? And what possible solutions at this point in time can put the crisis to rest? We are going to be hearing from you as we shall be opening our lines for you to call us and send us your contributions. You can equally send us your contributions, leave a message on our Facebook Live page. We shall have them right here on the program. This is the Pan-African Debate. Joining us this day, it's a handful of panelists and you equally out there, which we shall be expecting to hear from you. And let's welcome our panelists this day on the program. Sam Mutaga, thanks for being there today.
Thanks a lot, Mr. B. Thanks for giving me this privilege to be on air here in this prestigious platform to edify the war, especially on the chronic atrocities which are going on in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. I remember we are talking of the two regions that war sparked out in 2016, and some of us, I'm a living victim of let me say the barbarism of the regime, the Bia's regime. I want to say so because I remember in 2019 I was arrested alongside with other militants of the Cameroon Renaissance movement and dumped in the Kondongi Central Prison simply because in 2019 many militants of the CRM ran into the street protesting against the military option to the war going on in the northwest and southwest regions. So the regime in place thought it was the only way to compensate us for being patriotic. So presently today we still have a handful of other militants of the Cameroon Renaissance movement who are still in prison simply because they stood up in 2020, that was in September, and they said no to the war going on in the northwest and southwest region, and they were arrested and dumped in prison. So let me use this opportunity to greet Mancho BBC, Ngalim Felix, and even a host of other separatist fighters, let me say separatist leaders whom I met in prison. I want to greet them because I met them in prison. The prison I passed time there, almost 2 years, was not a separate one from theirs. We spent time in the same prison, we're eating the same prison food, we're drinking the same prison water. So I think I have a lot which I can say concerning these guys I met in prison. I remember in 2019, Ngalim Felix, Mancho BBC, Penn Terence, and all the like were some of those who had to talk to the inmates of the Kondongi Central Prison, those who were arrested in connection with the Anglophone crisis, telling them that it was good for them to write a petition to the Minister of Justice and even to the President of the Republic, asking them for their release. I think it was a salutary initiative from them, showing that they were ready to collaborate with the system in place. They were not released up to date.
You have a lot to say, but definitely our focus today will be the civilians who are caught up in the two English-speaking regions. Just like every patriotic Cameroonian living, whether in the two regions or out of the two regions, we definitely want an end to this crisis, which has been dragging on for now 5 years now and counting. We shall be come to discuss on that. Thanks again for joining us on the program. We have Robert Kedia, member of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Greetings to you, greetings to my co-panelists, greetings to the head of state of the Republic of Cameroon, greetings to all lovely Cameroonians.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in the program. And on the other side, we have John Bakoro. It's leader of the consortium. You're joining us via Zoom this afternoon. Thanks for being there on the program, Mr. John Bakoro. Well, John Bakoro, you might want to dial in your audio so that we get to you. All right, we shall be establishing connections with you, John Bakoro. For the meantime, we shall have to look at what some of the paper headlines in Cameroon over this week have reported regarding the Anglophone crisis. So far, we had a handful of papers who were talking about the crisis in the two English-speaking regions. Let's get to our machines to see what the papers so far this week reported in line with the crisis in Cameroon's two English-speaking regions. Let's get to the machines. All right, we still have difficulty in getting the papers, but we shall have to look at the papers and what they reported with regards to the crisis in the two English-speaking regions. There were several attacks.
Latest happenings in the rest
in the two regions over the week. So far, we are looking at the papers and what the major headlines said so far. If the papers are ready, let's get to that before beginning discussions this afternoon.
Latest happenings in the restive northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon can cause one to arrive at the conclusion that
okay, definitely. Let's get the report and let's come back from the report. We shall get the papers so far. Let's have the report, which talks about the crisis in the two English-speaking regions.
latest happenings in the restive northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon can cause one to arrive at the conclusion that both the government and separatist fighters are doing nothing to see the war come to an end. Innocent citizens continue to be trapped in a war that has been ongoing for close to 5 years now, with no end in sight in the earliest time possible. A teachers and lawyers strike that was staged in October 2016, demanding for their basic rights as Anglophones has over the years turned into an unending war between government forces and separatist fighters who are seeking for the independence of Ambazonia. These fightings, which have not only rendered life impossible for residents of these two English-speaking regions, have equally seen several innocent lives lost and livelihoods destroyed. Many now live in fear and uncertainty. The latest of such incident that continues to make life immeasurable for the people happened in the early hours of Monday, August 23, when alleged separatist fighters are reported to have burnt down vehicles and stores in and around the Elak Oku market in the northwest region, burnt part of the Oku Council as well as the mayor's residence. Sources say the act was carried out on the basis that the people in the market do not respect the ghost town day of Monday and often betray separatist hideouts. Prior to this attack, a pastor and Christian of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon were shot on Sunday, August 23, during a supposed crossfire between separatist fighters and the military. Reports say the military carried out the gruesome act that led to the death of the Christian and the pastor injured, a claim which the military has denied. Also last week, a pupil of the St. Teresa Catholic Primary School in Kumbo, Bui division of the restive northwest region, was reportedly shot dead in a crossfire between government forces and separatist fighters. All these events in the past few days have once again raised eyebrows as to what the government and separatist fighters are doing to bring the situation under control. International and national calls for a ceasefire seem to have fallen on deaf ears as the war is somewhat escalating. Rather, both parties are usually engaged in blame games when incidents like the one that happened in Bali occur. It should be noted that the government has time and again reassured the populace that it is doing everything it can to bring the war to an end. But that is still to be seen given the latest turn of events. Meanwhile, the Minister of Territorial Administration Atanganji Paul on Tuesday, August 24, led an 11-man delegation to Abuja, Nigeria, for a transborder security meeting with the Federal Republic of Nigeria to strategize and take a fresh commitment to thwart all secessionist movements aimed at destabilizing both friendly nations.
Thank you, Lawrence Salum, for that report on the crisis situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions. Now, let's take a look at what the papers from Cameroon, English front pages reported this week, over the week. Let's have the papers. And beginning with the Cameroon papers this morning, this afternoon, let's see what the papers reported so that we actually put an eye on the in-depth of the situation in the crisis regions, the Northwest and Southwest regions. And we have here, we have notorious arms dealer arrested in Nigeria. That's what the Garden Post newspaper captions regarding the cooperation between Cameroon government and the Nigerian government to secure the borders and limit the flow of weapons in these two English-speaking regions. We have Nigeria, Cameroon border security, notorious armed dealer arrested in Nigeria. I'm moving to other papers this morning. We have the Post this day. The Post newspaper said Biafra League describes Cameroon Nigeria security commitment as a joke. That's what the paper is saying. Alliance with Amazonians not needed to for independence quest. That's what the Post newspaper on its one of its editions captioned over the week. Biafran League describes Cameroon Nigeria security commitment as a joke. That's what the Post said. The Garden Post equally on one of its publications says as blood continues to spill in Northwest and Southwest regions, shouldn't governments re-engage talks with jailed Amazonian leaders? That's what the paper questions in regarding one of its publications. Shouldn't the government re-engage talk with jailed separatist leaders? Now we have the municipal update on its front page said end time for secessionist terrorists regarding Cameroon and Nigeria transborder security post. There's already results from these relations between Cameroon, Nigeria transborder security. We've already seen that results have already been popping up regarding the security of the two bilateral relations and security between these two countries. We have the Post Weekender says week of blood and fire in the Northwest and Southwest region, says Bali bleeds as Oku goes aflame. That's what the Sun newspaper, that's what it captions on its front page. Let's move to see what other papers reported equally during over the week. And we have the Garden Post on one of its publications says at high profile security meeting in Abuja, Cameroon, Nigeria strategized to wipe out secessionists and equally Boko Haram. That's what the paper captioned the post in the Garden Post in one of its publications. The Newswatch says Buhari commits to barring secessionists from using Nigeria as staging ground regarding the armed conflict in the Northwest and Southwest regions. The Eden said murder in the church, nursing mother killed, pastor severely wounded equally, survives gunshot in the arm. That's what the paper said. The reporter said Nigeria will never serve as base for terrorists to destabilize Cameroon, says Buhari regarding transborder security. The Voice says a lack market, mayor's home, cars burned regarding Anglophone crisis, Anglophone self-destruction in Oku is what the paper is questioning. Anglophone self-destruction in Oku. We get to other papers to find out what it says, and the Garden Post, one of its publications, says drama in Oku, security forces, population take cover as over 80 Amber fighters invade the town. The Voice says soldiers shot pastor woman in God's house bloody Sunday in Bali over last weekend. The Voice equally says United Kingdom condemns fresh violence in Northwest, calls for investigation. That's certainly some of the highlights we had so far over the week, according to front pages of Cameroon's English newspapers. Thanks for joining us once again. Let's welcome our panelist who is joining us via Zoom. John Bakoro, welcome to join us on the Pan-African Debate.
I suppose now is the better time. Can you get my voice now?
Sure, we can get you, John Bakoro. You're live.
Okay, awesome. I'm sorry for the difficulties we faced at the beginning. It's a pleasure to be part of this program, and my regards to the other panelists and greetings to your entire audience. I think, taking a look at what the newspapers say, it's easy to kind of conclude that the escalation in the southern Cameroon's conflict is, is still on the upward scale. That there are no signs that anything is about to abate, at least not anytime soon. And then I see the news is also really like dominated by the discussions between the Nigerian and Cameroonian governments. But of course, I think that it's simply as a result of a misunderstanding of, what has been going on between the two countries, because Nigeria has been cooperating with the government of Cameroon way back since 2017. So what they are saying now in public is what they have definitely been doing in private. So the question to absolutely ask at this point is, what are the results that have scored from that point? I think what should interest the Cameroon government or the authorities of Cameroon is looking for ways to have that very important and necessary, dialogue. It's moving to the negotiation table, because that is the only way out of this situation right now. No number of alliances or public talks with, neighboring countries is going to change anything. Because if you look at the situation on the ground now, Louis, you agree with me that the boys or the voices in the bushes have acquired a lot of capacities to the point where they definitely are even doing their own productions. I wonder if they really need Nigeria anymore now, like they needed Nigeria before. And also, we can observe that they are getting a lot of their material right now from the Cameroon security forces themselves by, attacking them and capturing weapons. Of course, we saw what happened in Oku just yesterday, where they were able to attack a brigade, chase away the security forces, kill one, and, cut weapons. That's simply what they have been doing. So I don't think that the much hyped discussions between Cameroon and Nigeria and all or not is really going to help, in any way, shape, or form, because Nigeria has been doing just that since 2017, shipping people back to Cameroon in huge numbers, beginning with the Yukta base, the 39 from Taraba, from Taraba State, those from Calabar, and all of those things. It hasn't changed a thing. Another perspective you need to look at is that while the Nigerian government is making the noise up there, the people of Southern Cameroon and the people of Nigeria are in very serious cooperation. And that is exactly where it matters, because it is with these people that that there are dealings, not actually officially with the Nigerian government. So rather than blowing hot air on those discussions, I think what the Cameroonian authorities should be discussing today is how to come to the table, because that is the only solution to this situation right now. You definitely have seen events in Afghanistan. I will agree with me that after 20 years of going round and round, the United States, France, the United Kingdom, imagine forces from these very big countries that are considered, superpowers in the world, were unable to outdo the Taliban for 20 years. And at the end of the day, they simply staged what we will call today a surrender. how much more of Nigeria and Cameroon? So those who are deceiving the system, who are deceiving the president of the Republic of Cameroon, to have that feeling that maybe because you have some talks and overtures with Nigeria is going to help, I really doubt so seriously. And I think Atang and Paul knows that he's, virtually captured with the COVID-19 scandal. So he needed to stage something like that quickly to see if he gets a buy-in and buy himself off some of those troubles. This is not time for people to get into those games. This is time for the system to recognize that the only solution is going to the negotiation table.
Time enough to go to negotiations table. Thanks for being there on the program. We shall be discussing more this day. Just like we told you, we shall be expecting to hear from those of you watching us, where we shall open a lines for you to call and send in your reactions. But then our topic for the day, looking at the civilians caught in separatist battle in the two English-speaking regions. You just saw some of the headlines reported by the papers. Now, let's begin with you, Sir Mutsaga. As a close observer of the crisis in these two English-speaking regions, the population so far during this short period have been in the grave suffering. We've seen a lot of reports coming from there, civilians being shot, cars being burned by separatists. We've seen market sheds being burned by separatists, and a lot more. The civilians continue to pay a huge price. At this point in time, what do you think is to be done?
The same thing we've been saying since 2016 is what needs to be done. Calling the frontliners of the separatist movement to a table of negotiation and carrying out an in-depth investigation to why there is general animosity boiling up in the minds of the inhabitants of the two English regions with regards to the way the system of government in Cameroon has been functioning. I think is very necessary, especially now that some school of thought think that it's just a minority, whereas if you look at exactly what is happening, you find that many of those who are down there at ground zero in the northwest and southwest region are blaming the government in place that the government is the sole cause of the escalation of the crisis since 2016. And we still continue to see the government pursuing cosmetic measures because, like the papers just said, moving to Nigeria to meet the president of Nigeria for an alliance to stop arms from flowing into the northwest and southwest region. I think they cannot shake an inch to solving the crisis because the boys, nowadays we know that they have gone past that age of importing weapons. Some of them are manufacturing their own weapons that they use. The local bombs you see being detonated left and right are not imported. They are being manufactured by the boys. So what I think is the President of the Republic of Cameroon, President Paul Biya, acknowledged that there is a real problem, that they tried assimilating the Anglophones and it did not work. So I don't see why they should be fighting people who have an identity. It's only left on them to give them that respect to assume the identity and called for negotiations, like I said, and general apology, because it is an apology that needs to be tabled, because you remember when Honorable Joseph Wiba stood at the National Assembly in 2016 and coins out that grievances were boiling up in the northwest and southwest region, he was castigated, and today we are seeing it. In this platform, we even heard people who said that they were going to crush the fighters in 2016, that it was going to take maybe just 3 months, and finally it didn't work. If we are talking about 5 years into the war and we think that the bazooka for bazooka can solve the whole problem, I don't think it will not work. It's true the international community needs to press more buttons, because we think that they are already lax and people are dying day in, day out, because we used to see when the European Union, when the United States of America, when other partners used to pressurize on this, on the government in place, they were already taking meaningful strides, even though it had to end up with the organization of the Grand National Dialogue. If the Grand National Dialogue had worked, we would not have been at this particular juncture, because what happened with Grand National Dialogue was just that it had to regorge many of those who are, let me say, who are loyal to the regime in place, and it sidelined those of the some of those key actors who were supposed to be brought in. I'm talking of the separatist leaders who are maybe in the diaspora, some of them who are, that one is of the diaspora in Europe, in America, and some who are even in Africa, in other countries, in South Africa. We are talking of a man like John Akoro. I didn't see John Akoro at the national dialogue, whereas he's quite resourceful. If he was invited there, I think he would have something to say.
So now, at this point in time, we're looking at where we are at this point, civilians caught up in this battle of separatists. When you look at what happened in the northwest regions recently, you see populations are suffering, some killed, their properties burned now. The separatist leaders or separatists fighting the ground, they attacked in Oko recently because the population failed to respect the usual Monday ghost town. Now, when you see Anglophones, destroying properties like that in those two regions, now, who do you blame at that point in time?
I think that the person who has the sole responsibility for that war is the Bia's regime in place.
Now, let's focus on the difficulty and the challenges faced by the population. Now, they are the ones who are now paying the huge price.
Yes, they are paying the huge price. I want to say that the government has assured us that they can contain the fighters effectively and then provide security for the population of the northwest and southwest region. So if there are these atrocities still going on, you find that it's been a camouflage, that the government is not doing its job. So, and when you look at the attack that happened at the church in Bali, those who carried out that attack, from the amateur videos we saw, the confession that was out from the video said it was carried out by the military. That's what they said in the video.
We have this blame game which still continues to go on. The separatists always blame the military blaming the separatists, but the population are the ones suffering.
The population are the ones suffering. It is true. That's why I say that at this particular juncture, the real people who have all the resources, the institutions within their reach, they have the entire diplomacy they can exploit to end the war, is the regime in place. They have gotten the legitimate and the legal approval of the people to solve the crisis in the northwest and southwest region. If the war is still going on, it's because the methods which they have been using are cosmetic methods. If they had used the real method, like we said, release the separatist leaders who are in prison. I said it here that the person who pays the piper dictates the tune. Those who are the leaders of this crisis, they know exactly how they can speak to the boys and those in the bushes to tell them, okay, those who have carried out arms, that stop like this. If you take ordinary citizens like Mutaga, I'm a politician from the northwest region. If you take other politicians who believe in maybe changing the regime in place through the ballot to discuss with them, it would not solve the problem, because we don't have access to those boys in the bushes to talk to them. We don't have access to those girls who are with those boys in the bushes to talk to them. It is the separatist leaders themselves. They have a specified and maybe a strategic way of communication with those boys. Right. I'm quite certain that if they are lobbied, it is not only to govern people. It's not only the hammer and the nail. There is a way to cajole these people in the prison. I've gone to prison maybe twice. I met Ayuk Tabe personally. I spoke with him in the prison. I met Mancho BBC. I spoke with them in the prison. If you get the statements from these people, you understand that there are people that if you give them, explain to them, tell them reasons why they should still believe in this nation, they would be forced to drop off their arms and talk. They are quite peaceful people from the way I have spoken with them time and numbers.
All right, Sir Mutaga, will come back to you now. Robert Kenya, when you look at the situation on the ground and the suffering of the population, do you think the government is to be blamed at this point in time for not resolving the problem or the crisis?
Firstly, I would like to express my condolences to the family that lost their loved ones the past week during this crisis, to tell their family to know that Cameroon is an independent and sovereign nation, and all Cameroonians at home and at the diaspora feel their pain as we move ahead to bring a lasting solution to the ongoing crisis in our two English-speaking region. Firstly, before I go into detail to talk, I was introduced as a member of the CPDM, and Sir Mutanga introduced as a member of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, but the third communicator have not been introduced. Is he talking like a Cameroonian in the US, or he's talking like a member of the civil society, or he's talking like one of the separatist leader? I would like that aspect to really be distinguished so that our viewers can know, and I myself, I can know. Now, to go forward to talk about the problem, really the civilians are really caught up. Some of them are in Nigeria, some of them are internally displaced, both in the French region and in the English-speaking region. Their situation is deplorable. They are actually caught within this ongoing crisis. I would not like us to start doing the blame game, because the blame game really has not helped. Anyone that thinks that is the government of President Paul Biya, I have no problem with them. It simply means that they recognize him as the president of the republic, and the problem we are facing, they know that they have to turn to their president that they elected officially, and they trust him. So if they turn to him to say he has solution to it, then I have no problem with that. Going again further with the blame games, like for instance what happened in Bali, it is complicated to conclude that it is the military or to say it is the AMBA, because we now know that the separatist fighters do pick up, put on uniform dresses to carry out atrocities. So the situation in the ground is complicated. If a villager inside the church simply thought that it was the military because he or she saw a military dressing, is not really a concluding fact, because the separatists do put on military dresses. I will also talk about the issue that happened in Uku, where the mayor house was attacked, the office of the security force of law and order, and a school was burned down. And we should not forget that education is a fundamental human right, and when schools are being burned down by separatists, it means that they are violating the right, which I should have expected condemnation to come out from civil society organization to condemn that act. All right, this has happened now. We are doing the blame game. Now, I heard Sir Mutanga saying that Paul Biya is fighting people of the Northwest and Southwest region. That is wrong to say. He's fighting, or the fight is against those that have picked up arms. And the mission of the security forces is not to kill them, but to neutralize them. And there is no association that is going on between the people of the southeast of Nigeria and the people of former British Southern Cameroon. As my brother of the other side earlier said, that the alliance has nothing to do because the people are cooperating. It's a misleading information, which I totally denounce it. Now, we have seen our brothers being internally displaced. And I think what we should do now is to bring out solutions as Cameroonians. And the government of Cameroon...
What is the solution you're proposing now? We are looking at the suffering and challenges faced by the population caught up amidst this ongoing crisis, the fighting between the separatists and the Cameroon government. What do you think is that solution we need right now? Is there any, and who should lead that solution? Is the Cameroon government, just like you said, he's been recognized as the president of Cameroon, and definitely should be the one to resolve the problem?
Yes, the first solution to resolve this problem is honesty. Honesty on the part of citizens, indigents, people that their origin can be traced from the Northwest and Southwest. No matter the site where they belong, they are supposed to be honest so that we can bring a lasting solution to this problem. And we should be able to say the right thing, and togetherness will bring out a solution.
Now,
For those talking about the government discussing with the separatist leaders in the diaspora, it's not a problem for the government of Cameroon to discuss with those in the diaspora, of course, but those people singing that we should discuss with those in the diaspora, we should also know that there are people in the diaspora that are ready to discuss with the government. We acknowledge that. But we should also know that there are people in the diaspora that are looking for legitimacy, that have non-governmental organizations that are telling them, look for legitimacy, we will support you financially and with weapons. And we know other giant countries that are also with some of the separatists, not all of them in the diaspora, they are looking for legitimacy. And with the call of a dialogue with separatists, would definitely give them that opening. While we also have a separatist leader in the diaspora that we believe that we can also discuss with them. So we should be able to distinguish between these two forms of diasporans, which many Cameroonians are not aware with their act of jingoism that they do behind. To go further again to say is that for a lasting solution to come, our people, I say it in honesty, our people need to respect our elites. They need to respect our chiefs. They need to respect men of God. They need to believe to this political elite, social elite, and economic elite that they can represent us and talk on our behalf and bring a lasting solution. We should stop the insult we throw at our chiefs. They are our traditional rulers. We should stop the insult we throw at our men of God. Like, for instance, the church that was attacked. On social media, the head of that church was being insulted on social media and said all type of names. But those are the people that can bring peace, that we need to give them support so that they can talk with the government for lasting peace. When we keep on insulting our chief men of God, political elite, economic elite, then we are making a mistake. So I think that our elites do have a place for discussion to bring peace, which I also think that those in the diaspora that are negotiating with NGOs and other countries for sponsorship should also stop and meet the right way so that we can go ahead with any dialogue as we are doing. We have been dialoguing, we'll keep on dialoguing. In 1961 at Fumban, we did dialogue. In the early 1990s, we did dialogue. We have been dialoguing and we'll keep on dialoguing like Cameroonians of good faith. But the dialogue should be within the context of the constitution that stipulates the fact that it is one and indivisible.
When you,
Semutega, I'll come back to you. While we're waiting for the dialogue and we're looking at the suffering of the civilians, why the dialogue is taking too long, but then that's what we're discussing on this day, and we shall get to you for more opinions on that. Let's get to you, John Bakuro. You're a member of a consortium, and just like Robert Keja was demanding to know your standpoint and your position as a Cameroonian consortium leader, or you better define that position to him. That's the question he asked. Then we get to find out from you. You've been following up the situation in the two English-speaking regions, and so far the suffering of the population, those who are caught up in these two regions, the suffering they are going through as a result of the armed conflict now. How do you, or where do we go from here, and what do you think should the population should do as a member of consortium? What's the way forward from here?
Well, thank you very much for coming back to me, and in response to Keja's question, I should say that Keja definitely knows who I am. He knows what I stand for. He knows my standpoint, and I mean, it is not in his role to be asking me to redefine myself. I think that I've always been absolutely clear here, and very unambiguous. I am the leader of the consortium. That consortium was initially called the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium. But after the Restoration Act in 2017, we renamed it the Southern Cameroon Civil Society Consortium. And one thing I like to point out is that my friend Kedia should always go back to his history books and learn from there that you don't truncate history and think anybody stands and believes with you. I think if he had the opportunity to listen to the Archbishop Emeritus of the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province, Archbishop Cornelius Fontaine, he was absolutely clear. Cameroon is two and divisible. That mantra of one and indivisible that the regime has put into the mouths of the likes of Kedia so they can be parroting it all over the place and all whatnot, that wouldn't make history to be different. That wouldn't change history. Because when you say those things and you say in Fumban we dialogue, who and who dialogue in Fumban? You should always recall that when two entities come together and one decides that it is big enough to swallow the other, there will never be peace. Forget it completely. And again, my friend makes another assertion. It is the kinds of assertions that people like Kedia make that imperil the lives of the people, of the members of the civil society, of the civilians on the ground. Who doesn't know the modus operandi of the Cameroon military? Whenever you hear that there was indiscriminate shooting anywhere, it is the terrified cops that Paul Biya sent to the southern Cameroons who do those kind of things. Once the boys, hit them, they get confused, they start shooting anywhere at random. At that point, they are ready to kill anything just to, satisfy their thirst. That is how civilians pay the price. If they were absolutely acting like a professional army, they wouldn't be doing those kind of things. And trying to manipulate information at all times on the lives of the people, Mr. Kedia Robert, who look up to you as being one of theirs, who should be able to speak truth to power, who should be able to stand out there and say, this injustice being done on my people has got to stop. But when you come and you're speaking with two sides of your mouth, or with water in your mouth, how do you expect the people to actually want to go along with whatever you are saying? And then, again, there's some little thing you said there that I want to correct you very fast. You don't sit in Yaoundé and tell me that the people, the civil society, the civilians in Nigeria, in the border towns in Nigeria are not in tandem with the people of the southern Cameroons. You are talking to someone who lived inside there with them for one whole year. For the whole of 2017 and part of 2018, I was a refugee in Nigeria. So I'm not talking from the skies. I'm not like you talking from the blues. Because you like to say, you people prefer some kind of manipulation to keep turning the minds of gullible Cameroonians or from La République du Cameroon to think that this whole thing is winnable on the battlefield. It is not. It is not, and it will never happen. Let me remind you, the local people of Nigeria are actively disenchanted against the Buhari government. So when you even sit down, I want to glory that discussion that they got into, feeling it is something that you need to celebrate. I must remind you, Nigeria's own challenges are so enormous, they won't even be able to have the time to pay you the attention you think you really deserve. They have Boko Haram, they have the herdsmen, who are right inside the heart of Nigeria, making life impossible. You have the guys in the Niger Delta, who because of a recent legislation passed in the Nigerian Assembly, have got up and they have said they are going to pick up arms again if that is not immediately reversed. You have kidnapping for ransom and serious banditry taking serious root into Nigeria. Why has all those challenges to live up to for the people of Nigeria? It doesn't have that time for Cameroon. And then again, you mentioned something about the pro-independence leader in the diaspora with some willing to talk with the government and others not. Let me remind you, and let me make it abundantly clear to all and sundry. All the pro-independence leaders, be them on the ground or in the diaspora, we are all willing to talk with the Cameroon government on the negotiation table. Take note, underline that, okay? We're all willing to talk with the Cameroon government on the negotiation table. But the only thing we're not willing to do is to talk with the Cameroonian government on their terms. That is not going to happen. And it will never happen. So you can note that down. And then you talk about respect for traditional rulers. Do your military people respect these traditional rulers? These traditional rulers that they hunt down, catch and beat, lock up as if they are dealing with scouts in the neighborhoods. Do they respect our tradition, respect our institutions? When you talk about church leaders, when a church leader who is supposed to be that fearless man of God who should stand and speak, and the community hears because he will speak the truth. When that church leader takes sides with the oppressor against his own parishioners, does he deserve respect anymore? He's lost out his own respect. I think what we need to know here, the people of the southern Cameroons in huge numbers have made it continually and abundantly clear that they are no longer interested in having any forms of links with La République du Cameroon. The earlier the Cameroon government understands this, and we sit on the negotiations table and spare the lives of those soldiers who are poor people's children, who are dying, spare the lives of our civilian people in the southern Cameroons who are facing this oppression on a daily basis, the better for the two countries. You followed Archbishop Cornelius Fontaine very well. He said we are two and divisible. And if we want to have frank dialogue, we must go from that perspective that we are two and divisible. He is not the only one, the only man of God who has said this before. Look, what happened in Oku was an eye-opener to the people, that when the so-called military tells you that they will protect you, they are there but to mount barricades and cut huge sums of money from the people, extort from them. When the voices, to quote Atanga Ponji, from the bushes emerged in Oku, you saw the headline on the Guardian Post, right? The first people to run and take their cover were the soldiers and abandoned the same people they had deceived to believe they can provide them protection to themselves. And if the people find themselves at variance with their boys, it's because the boys feel offended that they are taking instructions from a foreign government. Because if you don't know, La République du Cameroon is an occupier on our territory. It's a foreign government. The earlier they pack out and leave our territory, both countries will enjoy peace. And this is so essential. You should note it down, Mr. Kedia, and tell your slave masters that the time for them to pack out is now, to reduce the troubles and the trauma that will continue to fall on people on both sides. Because when I see those old mothers weeping and rolling on the ground for their only children that went into the military to look for, means of survival, to win bread for their families, it hurts me. They are human beings. Those old mothers are not supposed to pay the price for Mr. Paul Biya's stupidity. They are not supposed to. So the earlier we get to the negotiation table, the better for all parties.
All right, thank you very much, John Bakuru, President of the consortium. We have Mr. Otto David joining us. He's a security expert. Mr. Otto David, thanks for joining us on the Pan-African debate this afternoon. Now, let's just go straight away to asking you a question. Now, you are a security expert and you have an eye on the crisis in Cameroon. How has it gotten, and how can it get regarding where we are at the moment?
Yes, thank you very much, Afrique Media, for having me here. And I want to appreciate my co-panelists for their frank discussions. Yes, as you rightly said, this is a crisis that we've all paid very close attention to, and we continuously do that. The way I see it is very clear that the present modus operandi that the government thinks it can resolve this issue, that's by using the military. I think the government understands itself that it's not going to be able to win it. Insurgency, or whether you want to call them separatists or you want to call them terrorists, as the government would like to do, you cannot defeat them as long as they have the support of the local communities that they operate within. And one thing which has to be understood very clearly is that as long as there are genuine reasons why people take up arms, that consent itself, it's one of the push and pull factors, which I think the government really needs to understand. I mean, the government knows, as we all do, that this is a conflict that can only be resolved, by having a frank negotiation. But somehow, I think, there are people within the government who believe that there is a benefit in continuing the armed conflict. Not necessarily that there's going to be a resolution through the arms pursuance of sending military to these areas. But we understand that, like every other government, they would always deploy their forces, wherever there is a conflict. But at what point, does the government realize that anybody who is killed in this conflict, affects the entire country? The government uses the mantra, which I've heard a number of my co-panelists quoting, that the country is one and indivisible. If you want it to be one and indivisible, I think what the government needs to do is to engage in dialogue, so that that one and indivisibility, can be seen in practice rather than in theory. So it's very clear that at the moment, from the way it is, the Ambazonia separatists are not going to win, with the current capacity and capability that they do have, but they are going to make the areas where they occupy ungovernable, and they're going to make it very difficult for an establishment to operate within those areas. Now, the capacity that the government has is also not going to be able to defeat the separatists. So the position which there is now is that the government is not going to win using its military, and the Ambazonia fighters are not going to win using their fighters, because of course they only occupy certain areas within the location, which is the northwest and the southwest regions, which they want to have a separate state within. So they don't have that capacity yet. But on whose interest is the destabilization? I think the government is there to lose. If you look at the economic impact that the crisis has caused, if you look at the diplomatic stain that it has had on the Cameroon government, it is very huge. And I can tell you that within the quarters of the state, there is no discussion that is being had without talking about the impact of the conflict. And that tells you a lot, that this is a very serious issue that both the national and the international community has been facing. Now, what is the greatest loss for this is the amount of civilians that are being killed, as a result of this conflict. It is not surprising. In every conflict, it is the civilians, that will always, take the greatest punch. And, this one is not any different. But what I think it's happening is that, there is this belief that, if the more people that die in the conflict, the less interested they will become in terms of either supporting one side or the other. But it doesn't work like that in this kind of, asymmetric warfare. People will be born, people would grow up, and people will understand that, this is a conflict to fight for. What the government has failed to do, which is very clear, is to encourage people to leave as one of my co-panelists said, the voices to leave from the bush. But what I think has to be done here is for the government to be able to establish very clearly that it has done something for the people who are not engaged in fighting. But that hasn't been able to be demonstrated. So as long as you haven't done anything for the people that are not engaged in the armed conflict, if you haven't given any reason for people to believe that joining the arms, conflict is not an advantage, then you always have people that will be recruited within the group. So I think, at this point in time, I believe that, it's on a stalemate. The Ambazonia separatists, the group, they know that they cannot win, but they also know that they cannot give up. So I think the government really needs to be, genuine in the way that it wants to resolve this conflict. But before they do that, even within the government itself, they have to be able to discuss, where they are going with this, because they have opposition within the government, just like you have opposition within the separatist group.
All right, Mr. David, thanks very much for your opinion. We'll come back to you shortly. Those of you watching us, this is the Pan-African Debate. Let's get your opinion. You can send us your calls or your contribution. You can leave them on our Facebook Live page. Let's read them here. We're looking at civilians who caught in the separatist battle in the two English-speaking regions, the northwest and southwest regions. Now, Sam Mutaga, on one of the front pages of the Cameroon English newspapers, we saw the News Watch, that's The Voice newspaper reported that Anglophone self-destruction in Oko. Anglophone is destroying what actually belongs to them, like destroying their own self. Like, are they on a self-destruction? We look at what has been happening in Oko and certainly in the other areas. We saw the front paper picturing houses burned, cars burned, businesses burned by the same separatists who, on their part, are out to protect the civilians instead.
The question here is, who are the ones destroying those properties?
The separatists took the responsibility and they claim responsibility for the atrocities.
I think that when there is a confrontation between two forces fighting, there are bound to be some items that will be destroyed.
Now, this event happened on Monday, and the reason was that the population failed to respect the Monday ghost town. That's why their businesses were burned.
I don't think that it's normal to destroy the properties that, or maybe the things that cost maybe fabulous sums of money, billions of francs CFA, to build like the roads, the bridges, and all the like, because even if Ambazonia were to be a separate independent state, they will still need those things tomorrow. So it's uncalled for. And I want to say that this shows how desperate the two camps are for solution to the crisis. Like the security expert just said a while ago, you will find out that within the rank of the separatists, they know that the government cannot defeat them and that they themselves cannot win the government. So what they are doing is like a kind of a delay tactic, waiting for maybe God to descend from heaven and then come and call both of them to a table of dialogue, which is not true. It's time we advise the two camps that in a supposed pleasure in sin will yield more than its equivalence of pains. The separatists find pleasure in fighting to have their state, which for certain, like, it's with their right, you know, within the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and not like this right to self-determination. I think that it's high time the regime in place stop playing the game of saying that Cameroon is one and indivisible. It's not by professing that Cameroon is one and indivisible that makes it one and indivisible. It's by taking concrete actions. Like I said, there is right to self-determination, which I know and I respect it, but the separatist leaders and even the separatist fighters should, if the regime in place thinks that Cameroon will remain one, the separatist leaders need a more concrete justification. They need a more concrete argument from the Bias regime. I'm still coming back to the Bias regime to tell them why they should believe that Cameroon should remain one and indivisible. Mr. Kedia talked of the Constitution of 1961. Mr. Kedia, I think one of the state ministers echoed it here on this particular platform, that the Constitution of 1961, there is an article that said it wasn't going to be modified, and that the federal structure of the nation or the federal constitution was not going to be modified, that Cameroon was going to remain a federal republic with the Anglophone having their federal state and the Francophones having their federal state. So it was modified. So if you're talking of that, there should be dialogue within the concept of the Constitution. I don't know, the dialogue within the concept of the Constitution, is it the context of the Constitution mean? Is it the 1961 Constitution, or you are talking of the 1972 Constitution that was modified? Which of these constitutions should the dialogue hold within the context? So that is one of the things. And then he further talked of the non-respect of traditional rulers and all the like. I want to tell you, Mr. Journalist, that can you imagine that in 2019, one of the traditional rulers, a Beti of the Francophone origin, was arrested and dumped in the Kondangi Central Prison simply because he is a militant of the CRM and stood for peaceful negotiations and dialogue to end the war in the Northwest and Southwest region. I'm talking of His Majesty Bilwa Efa, that is one of the special advisors to Professor Maurice Kamto. And he was even about to be destituted from his post of traditional ruler by the territorial administration boss, Mr. Paul Atanganji. It's unheard of anywhere else. If they are talking of those who disrespect traditional rulers, I don't think they are the voices whom they are in the bushes that are doing that. The regime in place itself, through their minister, who is sometimes arrogant, is a person doing so.
But the law says no one is above the law, even if you have to be a traditional ruler.
No one is above the law. There is what they talk of rights to adhere to a political party. This traditional ruler did not carry arms, simply because he adhered to a political party whose manifesto was clearly against the military option in the Northwest and Southwest region. He was arrested and dumped in prison for 6 months. Now, let us come to what he was talking about, the clergymen who have been disrespected and all the like. Have you ever taken time to read the Isaiah 58? Isaiah 58 tells us of exactly what the role of a real clergyman is. Not to hide in the church and pray in the church and wait for maybe sacks of money to come and be given to him to speak in favor of the regime in place or to speak in favor of an evil camp. The Bible tells us that the role of a clergyman is to speak the truth, to tell the truth on either side. That is exactly what the late Cardinal Tumi was doing, which I must appreciate him. But how many of the clergymen in Cameroon have stood up and spoken on behalf of the Anglophones, asking the regime in place, telling them that, okay, it's not time for war, it's time for dialogue. The life of any single Cameroonian that is wasted every day is so valuable for this nation that we cannot afford losing any of them. There are not many of them that do so. So when you find these clergymen who don't speak for their people, they only sit in their churches, wait for people to come and give offering, pay tithes and all the like, you find that they are not doing their job. They are not doing their job. I am not in any way saying that they should be molested. I am an evangelist myself, and I don't think that it is right for anybody to enter the house of God and attack God's children. The Bible says, touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm. So whosoever that goes into the house of worship and attack faithfuls of any denomination or any church is calling the wrath of God upon himself. Like we said, I think that to avoid further destruction of properties in the Northwest and Southwest region, it's high time the international communities, the partners to the unification of Cameroon, Britain and France, and even Germany, who were the very first person to annex Cameroon, come into play. They have to take full responsibility and talk to the regime in place and pressurize both parties. They have mechanisms, they have instruments that they can use to do so. Like Claudia said here, which I must laud him, the Anglophone crisis, the war going on in the Northwest and Southwest region, is the highest neglected crisis in the world today. We are talking of, in the world today, we are talking of about 6,000 to 7,000 people who have already perished. And we are not hearing, we have not seen it debated on the agenda of the Security Council of the United Nations,
well,
simply
we
because
don't have the statistics for that yet, but definitely we shall come back to.
Yes, like I was saying, I still have to come back to what what has to be done to avoid the destruction of properties. It is ceasefire on what is going on in the Northwest and Southwest region. Negotiation for dialogue.
Has the separatists on their part shown any willingness for a ceasefire?
Let me tell you something. If two people are fighting and one man has the gun in their hands and tell the other person, even if you were just with the cutlass, drop your cutlass, the man that has the cutlass in his hand would prefer to die with the cutlass rather than dropping his cutlass when the other person is still with the gun. So like I told you, if after negotiation, the two leaders, Ayuk Seseko is there in the prison. President Paul Biya, that he spoke here that because we of the CRM, we said that the elections of 2018 were rigged.
All right.
But simply because we had held for peace sake that he should continue solving the problems of the nation, and he is not doing that. So I think that if he has been there for 2 years and is unable to solve the problems of Cameroon, especially the Anglophone crisis, which is the most striking problem on the agenda, he's telling us that he is not fit for office and that the office he's occupying is not his real office. Why not resign as other heads of states have been doing? They resign. If you find that you have numerous problems, you cannot solve those problems, the best thing for you to do is to resign. His age does not even permit him to be ruling the nation any longer, because if he were still strong as he was, he would have gone to the northwest and southwest region himself to witness what is happening at ground zero, rather than sitting in the office and waiting for reports to come to him. Those reports that are always being truncated, you find the reports are biased and all the like, because they want military men to continue being there, money voted at the National Assembly, people sent on mission on all the like, commissions created and all the like, the taxpayers' money being burnt, and then they tell you the situation in the northwest region and southwest region is calm, and we hear people dying every day.
Let me hear from Robert Kedia.
See, emotions at times block sense of reasoning, and it becomes a problem in getting solutions. But there is one thing the President of the Republic, President Paul Biya, said, that it is time to forgive and continue the building of our nation. President Paul Biya, with his experience and age, has no personal interest, and I don't think that the falling of children in the northwest and southwest will make him happy. I believe he's sad and he really loves peace. Now, to those in the diaspora, it's just that John Baakuru is a leader of a consortium which has been banned, but he's not a separatist leader. The issue I see it that maybe there's no panelist that's a separatist leader is that I see it. There are some of them that are ready to discuss, and there are some of them that are negotiating with NGOs and some powerful states to get finances, which these states and these NGOs have refused, and saying that you don't have legitimacy. Ensure that there is a dialogue with the government, so that the world will see that there is the government have recognized certain aspects and want to discuss with you because it recognizes you, and this will give this legitimacy to this particular group of persons which we know, so that they can have these finances from these states and this non-governmental organization that we know that their interest has been in Cameroon since 2006, when the Bakassi Peninsula was officially given to Cameroon, and it is part of the English-speaking region. So there is that issue also there that makes the discussion to go on fluently. I know that John Baakuru may not know of this because he's not a separatist leader. If he was a separatist leader, I believe he must have known about this, unless he would debate with me that he is one, but I believe he is not one, but a leader of a consortium that has been banned, which means it is still illegal in Cameroon.
Mr. Kedia, for your information,
I will not want us to...
You pull on bringing in confusion to the people. There is no such thing as a separatist leader. We are pro-independence leaders. So I don't even know who you are referring to as separatist leaders. We are pro-independence leaders. There is no such thing as separatist leaders. And when you talk about the consortium being banned by who? By your own government. So what you need to know is your government has never approved the SCNC. It has never approved the consortium. It has not approved of any of those ones that you are calling separatist leaders. So who has it ever approved of? One thing you should know is when you are referring to us as separatist leaders, you are actually trying to deny history. Southern Cameroon is an entity. And just for your information, go back to law. The people's the Human Rights Court in the Banjul that Cameroon subscribes to and recognizes ruled that the people of the Southern Cameroons are a people under international law. So I think that sometimes you should be able to work with facts. When you come to the panel to sit and parrot things that Mr. Paul Biya left, Mr. Paul Biya right, Those
Can I
things, they don't
continue,
grow you.
Mr.
Speak like
Journalist?
somebody who is reasoning. Thank you.
My
And I'm sorry
right
for
of
interjecting.
expression is being
Alright,
violated
okay.
here. I was the one talking, and my
Robert
right
Kenya.
was violated here.
Alright,
Can I
you-
continue?
You have the microphone. I'll get
All
back
right.
to you, John Barker.
All
You have
right.
the microphone.
Thank you very much for rescuing my right that was just taken away. You see, there are contexts of words now in Cameroon with regards to this crisis, and we should not be hypocrite, because I earlier said that honesty is the solution to all this problem. Honesty from everyone, everyone, for those origins of that region, everyone, diaspora or wherever you find yourself, we need to be honest to bring a lasting solution to this problem. And if we are bringing solution to this problem, we are supposed to say things the way they are. In the English-speaking zone, we have some words like voices. When you talk of voices, somebody may not understand the meaning of that word, but it has a significance right now. When you talk of blackleg, when you talk of sellout, they have their significance now in this region, which is different from the pure English language. If we are not hypocritical, we should be honest to accept this. Now, when we talk about separatist leaders, Mr. Mbakuru, are those that are buying weapons, are sponsoring those that have picked up arms, which 3 of them has been called by the federal court there in Maryland, which you know very well. You are in America. So when we talk about separatist leaders, are those that are giving weapons to the separatist fighters. So that terminology still remains. And if I will go ahead, I will believe that most people have been saying that they should talk with separatist leaders. But if today, Mr. John Bakuru, you are telling me that there is nothing as separatist leader, which I myself have once heard you say this, I get confused. But I will not permit myself to get confused. But I know that the word separatist leader do exist. All right. To go further, we need to stop the blaming game, but look forward for the falling of our brothers and sisters. And I will assure you, Mr. Mbakuru, that dialogue is continuously. We will keep on talking as brothers. Those in the diaspora, those at home, everywhere, we will keep on talking to bring lasting solution.
All right.
But it should be within the context of Cameroon is a nation.
Okay.
The president of the republic does not have that powers to go over the constitution that says Cameroon is one and indivisible, to start to talk with people that have status of separation. You say you are an entity. Fine, we respect the fact that you say you are an entity. You are the one that decided to vote on the 11th of February to join. That also is clear. You are an entity, but you were not an independent nation. There's a difference between an entity and an independent nation. Now we are together, and the country is one and indivisible. Bring your point, which you think you want to build this nation. If your point is on autonomy, bring it up, and we will keep on discussing. If your stand is federalism, like my brother here of the Cameroon Renaissance movement, that their stand is federalism, bring up your debate. We have seen people that go to TV stations to talk about confederation. Bring your ideology, we'll discuss about it. We've seen people that have brought idea of higher autonomy and whatsoever name that have been given to it. Bring it and debate. But the problem is we cannot talk of separation. The president of the republic cannot go above the constitution that stipulated that it is one and indivisible to negotiate over separation. Right. The government is ready to negotiate with all Cameroonians to bring lasting peace, but separation should not be part of it.
All right, I will get your point, Robert Kenya. Now, Mr. John Bakoro, Anglophones on self-destruction, we look at what happened recently in Oku, and presently there are some parts in the 2 English-speaking regions where movement has been halted because of orders or instructions passed by one of the generals who are leading in that part of the country or in that region. Now, when cars are burned, houses and businesses are burned in Oko recently for violations of the Monday Ghost Town, is it self-destruction? Whether Cameroon is an indivisible or divisible, should we destroy properties of people because they are respecting or not respecting rather good stance?
Let me begin by pointing out to you clearly that first, none of us subscribes to any destruction of any form in terms of property. But again, if you appreciate the context within which we find ourselves, you will definitely begin giving meaning to some of the things that are happening in that light. Look, the people of Moscow burned down their own houses, destroyed everything, and got away because they wanted to get at the French and Napoleon Bonaparte's troops coming after them. So I think the notion that some of those institutions represent the colonial presence of La République du Cameroon on our land can lead people to wanting to bring them down, with that same notion that once we get these people, these foreigners, these intruders out of our land, we will rebuild.
Now,
And I
Oko,
believe that,
John
like I
Bakoro,
said earlier,
Mr.
first,
John Bakoro, what happened
I
in
would
Oko
naturally
and
not
institutions
subscribe
for...
to destruction. So talk about self-destruction. I think that when you see these guys bring down a brigade, like they did yesterday, that brigade represents, I mean, it's a symbol of La République du Cameroon's colonial presence on our land. And there is nothing you can do to take this out of their minds. And then the mayor was elected in which of the elections? To the best of my knowledge, there were no elections in Southern Cameroon. So that mayor is an appointee of Mr. Paul Biya. So they look at him as being a representation of that colonial presence on our land. So you see, some of those things come into play. But I want to get out of there and get into some very more important and practical issues relating to how we look at the situation in the Southern Cameroons. When Kedia talks of people wanting legitimacy, let me tell you, Mr. Kedia, nobody is begging La République du Cameroon for legitimacy. I know when you talk of NGO, you are referring to HD. You should not be afraid of calling their name. Don't be afraid of saying that you are talking about HD. Because, of course, we all know the game that HD has with the
John Bakoro, it's like you have problems with getting feedback from you. Your network might not be the very best. We hope to establish connections with you, Mr. John Bakoro, but we equally open our lines to get your contributions. If you're watching us, you want to send us your reactions, the numbers are there on your screen. Let us know what you think, and let's get your opinion. If we have a call online, we can get your opinions. If there's a call online, let's hear you, and let's get your opinions. All right, let's hope to get back to those on Zoom. Now, let's talk with you, Mr. Otto David. We're hoping to still establish connections with Mr. John Bakoro. Now, this level where we are with self-destructions and destruction of properties by separatist leaders, with the excuse that the population are not respecting the Monday Ghost Star. Maybe we get the call online before we come back to you. Welcome to the program. You're live on the Panafrican Debate. You're live on the program, please. Let's get your opinion.
Thank you for the opportunity to read. I would like to ask a question to that man who says from the CPDM party.
Yeah,
you see, these are people who make us...
Yeah, I'm calling from Boy. I want to make my contribution
we are victims of
the ongoing debate. Hello?
Well, we are still hoping to... Welcome to the program. Let's hear your opinion, please.
Party, your party don't listen to people. You want. Secondly, you are talking about, you are discussing with who? With who are you discussing? You have to discuss with all Cameroonians. Nobody is how do you call it? You call them terrorists. No, no. No. And then you people have to say sorry for what you did for the English people. what you did for us. A person like me, my mom. So stop making us to be angry. Stop making us to be angry. We want solution. Solution is not come here and tell us this. No, you are out of the topic. So thank you so much, and God bless Afrimedia.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your opinion. We get your opinion, and we are still hoping to re-establish connections with those of you on Zoom this afternoon. Let's get your opinions if you're there. Let's have your opinions. The lines are open for you to send in your contributions by calls and your text equally on our live Facebook page. Let's get your opinions. There's a call online. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the Panafrican Debate. Let's get your opinion, please. All right. While we're hoping to re-establish connections with those equally on Zoom, if possible. All right. Let's get back here to continue discussions here in the studio. And Robert Kiria, we're looking at the self-destructions of Anglophones and where we are at this point in time. We equally have you, Sir Mutaga. At this point in time, what do you think should be the role of the population? The military are accusing them for not collaborating with the military to eradicate the separatist movement. Meanwhile, the John Bakuru and others equally said on the part that the population are collaborating with the separatists to realize their agenda of their objectives. Now, where should the population find themselves in order to avoid this mayhem and this, this suffering that they are going into?
We are at the verge of, let's say, a kind of a psychological trauma on the civilians themselves. When the whole thing sparked out in 2016, little did any of them had in mind that it will reach 2021. So they are like one who is caught between the devil and the Red Sea. So they are looking at the most, let me say, risk reducing side to hang on. So it's difficult to tell the civilians at this particular juncture whether they have to collaborate with the separatist fighters or to collaborate with the regular soldiers, because we are talking of an issue of security. Who provides them security the most? That is where the problem is. Who is more friendly than who? That is where the situation, the question is.
When you analyze what is happening on the ground now, what side do you think is more secure for them?
As a legal mind and a politician, I think that the best side to hang on is the side that has received certain legality and legitimacy for the protection of the common man. So that is exactly what I think. The side that has legality and legitimacy, they should depend on. So now it will depend now on the character portrayed by those who have received legality and legitimacy and legality. What do I say? We expect that the soldiers, the gendarmes, and the police who are in the two English-speaking regions should be able to provide security, should be able to carry out meaningful strides to win the confidence of the people of the Northwest and Southwest region. But now, when you look at what happened in Oku, it is unheard of that those they call separatist fighters, or you can call them terrorists or thugs as you want to put them, they had to invade a town, and then the regular soldiers ran away and left the common civilians helpless. So if you look at it, you find that it is difficult at this particular juncture to tell any one of those civilians that this is what you have to do. Right. I want to say that they are the ones who are at ground zero. They are the ones to take the best decision for themselves. But I still remain on the stand of my political party, which is the CRM. The CRM, since 2016, has been advocating for a meaningful dialogue.
Okay.
We retain that the right to self-determination is recognized internationally. If Cameroon will remain one and indivisible, it's not going to be by the gunpoint.
Right.
It's going to be through dialogue. It's
Okay.
going to be through meaningful dialogue, because the CRM does not buy separation of Cameroon or splitting of Cameroon into other little chunks of countries like it is. We think that it's high time the dialogue for peace to return in the two English regions. And to talk on that issue of security, those who are at the ground zero, they have right. They can easily appreciate who to hang on than I, who is at the platform today.
All right, thank you. Let's get now to John Bakoro. Before you had a point you were trying to raise before we had network issues. John Bakoro, let's get you. All right, now, Mr. Otto David, security expert. Now, is there a self-destruction ongoing? We have separatists destroying properties of civilians because they fail to respect ghost towns. We have movement being paralyzed in certain parts of the northwest regions because of certain reasons or imposed by the separatist fighters in these two regions. Now, what do you think these consequences, what do you think is going to look like? What does it mean for the common man? We have the military, military are blaming the population for not siding with them, while the separatists too equally want the population to side with them. Now, what is the security outcome of all this?
Yes, this is a very common tactic. It is not something which is very strange. During an insurgency, there are two things that are involved. One of that is trust, and the other is fear. Now, what normally happens is that, the non-state actors, let me use that word, always want to exert some level of fear to the local population in order for them to win their trust. So it's a bit tricky. But when it comes also to the state actor, the government also does the same. In order to get the population to trust them, they want to demonstrate some level of fear on that local population. So this is not something that is strange. And it also depends on which way it swings. So in some aspect, it may actually lead to the separatist groups gaining more trust from the local population. If the local population then, on a balance of calculation, realizes that they are more at risk by aligning with the state than by aligning with the separatist groups. So again, one has to be very careful how you measure self-destruction, because in insurgency, it's very different. It's not as straightforward as one saying because the separatist groups carried out a number of atrocities within local communities, then that directly translates to some kind of a self-destruction. It doesn't normally work like that. One has to be able to evaluate that based on the relationship that happens thereafter between the local communities that have experienced that level of destruction and the separatist groups that operate within that area. So it's not something which one can put an argument for or an argument against, because you don't know until you go down on the ground and you speak to the local communities and you hear from them what their take is. Now, if the local communities they tell you that the actions of the separatists have now driven them out of their hands, then that is a blow to the separatists standing within that population. But what is very clear is that these are normal tactics, and it's not going to stop. This is how insurgency works. It is not for me or for anyone to make a decision as to when there's a negotiation, how that negotiation should go, or whether the government should allow some form of whether it's to allow for a separate state or self-determination, or whether the government should then stick to the one system of governance. What I find very tricky which I'm sure that some of my co-panelists may be able to share with me, is that, saying that a country is one and indivisible doesn't mean that you cannot change the form of the state. So to be one and indivisible means a lot of things. You could be working as a decentralized movement, or decentralized state. You could be working as, a regional state. You could work as a federation, but it still means that you're still one and indivisible. So I think what the government really needs to be very clear on, which might be one of the issues that some of the separatist leaders or the Amazonian leaders have, is that the government speaks of one and indivisibility, but it doesn't really explain what it means by that. And in that way, it makes it very difficult for the Amazonian leaders, to come out and say, we want to work with the state. But what I can say, from my own experience, is that the government has been a lot more reluctant to come to the negotiation table with the separatist leaders. And I can tell you that I have been in situations where at least most of the separatist leaders have come to the table in waiting that the government should be able to engage them. Now, whether the government saw that as credible is something that you've got to ask them. But the war keeps dragging on because I think the government is not trying enough. I think if the government tries to do more in terms of, okay, let's have a negotiation, let's have a dialogue, and within that
Well, we still lost
then
connections with you.
let them put up an argument for that. So over to you, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Otto David. Now, let's get to you, John Bakoro. I know you've been waiting. Your opinion is still hanging. Let's get your complete views on the fact that we have a situation presently, John Bakoro. Just like Seb Butaga said, the civilians are caught up between the devil and the deep blue sea. We have houses being burned for not respecting ghost town. These are businesses of civilians they survive on, and we understand the challenges and the difficulty they're already into now. Do you think this action by separatists on the ground is going to cause the population to, lost support? Because now the separatists want the population to support them. Meantime, the government too wants the population to cooperate with them. Now, the civilians are caught up in between these two. What do you think it's going to happen at this time when they find their houses and properties being burned by separatists?
Well, say when you go to Rome, do what the Romans do. You are in southern Cameroon today, you are in Amazonia. Don't bother yourself, trying to ally with a system that is never going to be available to protect you. What you need to do is simple. Understand the rules that are in place and flow with the people. And, in the heart of Bamenda, in the heart of most of the cities, the people are respecting the ghost towns. That's one thing set aside. And so when you pick out yourself because they say that you are in a former prime minister's village and the military have come and promised you that go against what is already an established norm in the region and will protect you. That way, what you are doing, and then when you respect them, you are putting yourself in total collision with the other people who say, we have agreed that this is how we have to operate on this land. So if you start taking sides with the oppressor, you become a legitimate target. That is what happened to the people in Oku. And unfortunately, when it happens, that military that promises to protect you, that foreign military that promises to protect you, is not there. So they just went out there perhaps to show to the people that these guys can never protect you, as they claim. Mr. Bitten, look at what happens in Dian. There are 5 divisional delegates until today who are missing. No one knows where they are. The government is not saying a word about them. Their families are the ones paining today. Is this that government that anyone should be putting their lives on the line for? It really isn't. So if you ask me, like this morning I was just reading a text of a teacher in Boyo who says that there are many of them, the government has suspended their salaries since the month of June because they want them to go into areas where they themselves, even with armored cars, cannot go there. They have asked to be transferred elsewhere where perhaps they can still work and earn the money. Government says go there. If they get killed or if they get trapped, because too often the army of Cameroon will come and take them hostage and tell them, you must go and show us where the boys are. When they say they don't know where the boys are, who the boys are even, some of them end up with broken legs, or they end up in military hostage waiting for families to raise millions and sent to the Cameroon military before they are freed. So this kind of situation puts, the lives of the civilians at risk. And then let me get out of that. I want to be very clear about something here. This whole notion of one and indivisibility, I never know where it's coming from. And then Mr. Otto talked there about the form of the state. Remember, the late Cardinal Toumi said he conducted a survey and didn't even just put an issue of the form of the state. The local people, not even the pro-independence leaders, not even people who are based abroad, not even the Amber Boys, not even the Boyses and the Girlses. No, the people said they wanted absolute independence. They didn't just say independence, they said absolute independence. That was 69% of the people. This should tell you that the issue of the form of the state, we have long gone past that stage. There is no debate about the issue of the form of the state. The form of the state of La République du Cameroun is okay. La République du Cameroun is one and indivisible. That one, nobody disputes it. But the Southern Cameroon is not part of that La République du Cameroun that is one and indivisible. Remember in the early birth days of the struggle, Barrister Keremuna asked this question in a write-up. He said, Cameroon is one and indivisible. Which Cameroon? This is an internationally recognized legal mind. When he asks which Cameroon, if you say La République du Cameroun, fine, it is one and indivisible. When you talk about Southern Cameroon, that is discussion for another day, because we're not part of that whole stuff. So whether Mr. Paul Biya likes it or not, he will meet us eventually on the negotiation table for us to discuss the terms of our going apart. Yes, for us to discuss the terms, how they are going to indemnify the Southern Cameroons of all the destruction that they are perpetrated on our land, of all the companies that they carted away, everything that they did on our land from 1961. We have to discuss the terms of how La République du Cameroun pays reparation for those things. We will meet on a negotiations table. Mr. Kedia, yesterday you people called Nelson Mandela a terrorist. Before it was done, you people gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you remember? Familiar? So don't allow yourself to be pushed to forums, to be pushed to TV platforms, to come and be parroting things that you will not want to look at tomorrow when people rebroadcast them before you. You are a young man. We should all be futuristic. Look at the things as they are before you. Not because a system has planted you there to come represent their views.
All right, John Bakoro, thank you.
Resolving the situation in the Southern Cameroon has been very clear. We have said we are ready for talks any day, anytime, anyhow. But the only talks we will not take part at are the talks that Mr. Paul Biya organizes at his whims and caprices and things that we should come to terms. We will not. We are ready to meet with Mr. Paul Biya on the negotiation table to discuss the terms of our separate ways. And that is going to happen. Whether Mr. Paul Biya likes it or not. It might take time, Mr. Keja, but we will get there. That, you can count on me. You can trust me on that.
All right, John Bakoro, we get your point. As the debates continue, the war equally continues, the population continues to pay the huge price. Mr. Robert Kedia, we are certainly running off, and definitely the population at this point in time, what could be your advice to them? They are the ones who are suffering as we are debating here, as the fighting between the separatists and the Cameroon army are going on, they are the ones paying a huge price. What advice for them?
Before I give advice to those in the northwest and southwest region, I still ask the question. John Bakuru is saying that because they're saying that they must discuss with the separatist leader. And John Bakuru is saying that they must meet with us. Is he part of the us like the separatist leader?
He is leading the consortium and he definitely has
Oh,
propositions.
and the consortium, they are separatists? Or they believe in one and indivisible?
No,
because
he said it's a pro-independent.
Okay, he's a pro-independentist. And pro-independentists are separatists. So I really want him to come out with his stand. Because if he is a separatist, then I wouldn't have even been on this platform to discuss with one. I'm very honest. Because I don't hide, I don't bend things. Now, before I go now to your final answer, I don't discuss with. Before I go to your final answer, I just want to say that when we are talking about one and indivisible, we are talking at the level of territorial. I know the security expert, Mr. Otto. Sorry for not your name skipping my mind. When we talk about one and indivisible here, we are talking about the territorial integrity, that no kilometer will be lost. That's the meaning of one and indivisible. That's what we are saying now. Now, at the level of citizens, here on this platform, I have a federalist. There is a political party that want a communal federalism. There are those that have been talking about confederation and the rest. They are free to, but a territory of Cameroon, a kilometer will not be lost. That's the fact I want to stand on. Now, to go back to talk about those that are in Northwest and Southwest, the only thing I will remind them of is one of the statements of the President of the Republic, President Paul Biya, that he said, it is time for us to forgive and continue and move on and build our nation. That should be an awareness to everybody. It is time for us to stop and move ahead. Those that are there, collaborate with the forces of law and order. They will give you names like Black Leg, Sellout, or whatsoever, but you are serving your nation because that is the right thing to do. For those in the bushes, which now have new names as boyses or girlses, please, it is time for you to leave the bush. You don't belong in the bush. You have an educational career. Move and go to the center for rehabilitation so that you can be integrated into the system. We are calling on all to be lovers of peace. We give our apologies to the family that have lost their loved ones, and peace is at the corner. Those that are separatists should turn their way and come back to the Republic of Cameroon. We should enjoy the way we have been enjoying with peace. That is my final stand.
All right, thank you. It's gotten. Say Muchaga, what do you think should be the advice for those out there who are in these two regions, the citizens who have nothing to fight for but for their lives and their properties?
We thank my party's president, the president-elect, His Excellency Maurice Kamto, said it in 2018 that should Cameroonians honored him as they rightly did, he was going to go to the Northwest and Southwest region and the dialogue with the people to find out this form of the state they wanted.
So because he was not voted, that's why he has not gone there.
We regret that the elections were rigged in 2018, and presently the Northwest and Southwest region is like, let me say, it's like Sodom and Gomorrah, hailstone falling there, and no one can go there except of those who can come up in here because they are the authors of the hail falling. They know the antidote for it. So what I would want to say here is that the war is going on, and the international community, the United States of America, Great Britain, Germany, France, name all the other great nations that have a part to play at the Security Council of the United Nations are sleeping. And we want to say that if the war in the Northwest and Southwest region go to 10,000, 20,000, let none of them say they were not aware of it. It's high time they pressurize the Bias regime to release the separatist leaders, negotiate with them for calm in the Northwest and Southwest region. Like he rightly said, Cameroon is one and indivisible. It is a statement on paper. I want to tell you, if you look at, it's a statement on paper. I want to tell you that's the gospel truth. If you look at South Sudan and Sudan today, it was a country that was one and indivisible. So the leader that was running or ruling Sudan during that years failed. They failed to carry out actions that would hold the country one and indivisible, and the country split up. So it is high time today we leave this slogan, the empty slogan, and go into action. And the real action now is to do negotiation. They said desperate situations trigger desperate measures. People are dying. Let's stop talking nonsense every day. Cameroon is one and indivisible, and people are dying there. The people are dying are more valuable than the simple language we are talking of. Is Cameroon not collaborating with Gabon? Is Cameroon not collaborating with Nigeria? Is Cameroon not collaborating with Ghana? Is Cameroon not collaborating with Burkina Faso and other countries which are not even part of Cameroon? They have volumes of trade they do. They have volumes of relationship they carry out. Volumes of other diplomatic things they do. So what I said is, let them do everything possible. The Bias regime, we are calling on him to work. If Bia is still in power and is strong as they tell us he is, let him meet international partners who have real solution to it. And that solution is what? Negotiations and dialogue. I mean negotiation and dialogue. If that is done, those of us who are there for democracy, the electoral system is reformed, we go into the polls and vote the right person that will rule these nations and to end the sufferings of the Cameroonian people. Don't forget, even the military men who are in the Northwest and Southwest region are not happy when they...
We get your opinion, Sir Mutaga. Now, I just came across a video of the situation in the Northwest region. Vehicles and bikes are continuously being grounded in Balinyonga. Parents whose children were on holidays are forced now to walk on foot.
Imagine it.
With their luggages pushed in trucks to get to Bamenda. This is the unfortunate situation. Jomba Akorobi, with your last opinion and with the fact that separatists have called for, continuous ban on the circulation of vehicles and bikes in the Northwest region in the part of Balinyonga. What do you think the population should do at this point in time, and what's your last advice? John Bakuro. Are we able to establish connections with John Bakuro? John Bakuro, now the question here, we're talking about what is happening presently in Balinyonga in the Northwest region. Bikes and vehicles have been grounded. There's no movement, and the people there have to move on foot to Bamenda. Leaving Balinyonga to Bamenda, it's more than 30 kilometers, and they have to do that on foot. This is because the separatists ban movement of vehicles and bikes. We're talking about the continuous suffering of the innocent population.
Thank you, Louis.
Just 2 minutes,
I want to first begin by going back to Kedia, who keeps getting confused about...
Now, you have just 2 minutes.
Yes, I know, about the consortium and the likes. Mr. Kedia, hit it deep in your head. The consortium stands for independence, absolute independence, unmitigated independence. Is that clear now? Maybe you can take a pen and write it down, so you don't keep getting as confused as the political party you are representing here. Now, let me put this concerning Bali. I heard the colonial governor, Lele Lafik, say he had cleared the road in Bali and people should start using that road. Why are they not using it? Listen, you are talking about a government that is very erratic because they can't stand up to the security challenges that they have created themselves. You keep imposing pain and suffering on the people. Grandpa in Bali did not get up in the morning and say no vehicle should circulate. he was responding to an irresponsible SDO who gets up and notices that thousands of young people with degrees and certificates in Bali who do not have jobs are living or riding motorbikes and carrying people from place to earn their lives. You get up and you ban them because 5 reckless policemen found themselves, in collision with the voices. Why not go face the voices? You go after an easy target. That was wrong. And so Grandpa and Bali simply wanted to measure strength, and they have been measuring strength. They also cleared the road to Bingo. There were cars blocking. But since they cleared that road, no car is using that road. For the simple reason that they are trying to let the government understand that they have lost authority in this area. So let them stop coming out with stupid decrees and all not. And just so you know, the distance from Bali to Bamenda is 15 kilometers. It's not 30. I know KJ has never taken time to go to those places. He always sits in Yaoundé and parrots what the CPDM tells him. It's 15 kilometers. I've driven there over and over and over. Okay? So the people of Bali, the governor went and said he had cleared the roads, though there were no roadblocks, and the people should use it. The people are not using it simply because they want to show where the center of power is. So I think we need to come to terms with the fact that the earlier this government stopped being erratic and passing out decisions that are, against the people that they claim to be protecting, the better for all of us. Cameroon, like to be the Cameroon, I repeat, is one and indivisible. And Mr. Kedia, Southern Cameroon is not interested in 1 meter of La République du Cameroon soil. And we are asking La République du Cameroon not to be interested in 1 meter of Southern Cameroon's territory. Just as you are defending the territorial integrity of your La République du Cameroon, that is how we are defending the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Southern Cameroon. Remember in 2010, the United Nations gave Mr. Paul Biya 2 maps. Did you ever ask yourself what the significance was? You should learn. We have internationally recognized boundaries, which were even retraced again recently. Get up from slumber, sir. Southern Cameroon is an entity, will be independent, and we are not interested in transgressing to La République du Cameroon territory. We simply expect reciprocity, that La République du Cameroon stops transgressing into Southern Cameroon's territory. Thank you.
Thank you, John Ba Akuru. We get your opinion. Now, let's end with you, security analyst, Mr. Otto David. Now, you just got the information on the situation in Bali Nyonga, where people are forced to trek on foot, just like he said, 15 kilometers from Bali to Bamenda to get vehicles, because movement of vehicles and motorbikes have been banned in Bali Nyonga. Separatists as well as the government. The government on its part, just like John Bakoro said, the roads have been cleared, but the population are still afraid of the separatist threats in that part of the country now. What do you think, and what advice do you have for the population of these 2 regions?
Yes, thank you. I think it's rather unfortunate that this is the situation on the ground. Again, this is the normal practice when the government is engaged in a battle with a separatist or an independent movement that is making it very difficult for governance to happen. The only way that this can stop is for both sides to consider having a genuine negotiation. There is no advice you can give to the population. You can only tell them to trust who they believe will protect them. If they believe that it is the government that will protect them, then they should trust the government. If they believe that it is the separatists that will protect them, then that is what they should do. Remember that it's very difficult for the local population to rely on either side, by somebody telling them to do that. They have to make their own judgment. But these are all consequences of this kind of an asymmetric warfare. which is going on in Cameroon. And I think that the only answer to this is for, the government is, they are the bigger of both entities. Now, there is that argument that the Ambazonian movement, sees itself as an equal partner to La République du Cameroon. Therefore, there is no inequality. But it still remains very clear that, the government of Cameroon is the bigger party. And if they want to see any peace and stability, they have to engage in a meaningful dialogue with the separatist group. The outcome of that is something that both sides have to, win their argument. That would be my advice. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much. And the proposition of dialogue to be initiated, it's your standpoint. Robert Kenya, I want to thank you very much for coming. It's here, we put in a cap onto this edition of the Pan-African Debate.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. It's so sad that it is at the end of the problem, the program that John Bakuru Opuli says that the organization he's leading stands for a major independent, meaning that he's a separatist. Could not have gone into a debate with him, because I debate only with Cameroonians that wants
no,
for
his
Cameroon.
opinion was
But
clear,
that is his opinion. Thank you very much for inviting
Yeah, I
me.
would
Special
definitely not be
greetings
interested
to
in I'll definitely
Honorable
not be interested
Ngala
in
Gerard,
debating
who
with a
has
prophet like
been
you.
there to save the people of Ndonga and Mantung against this Anglophone crisis. And I will also beg other parliamentarians to stand and support him, so that we can flush out these people that have been creating disorder in the northwest and southwest region.
All right, thank you. Sebutaga.
Yes, thank you so much for opening your platform for all of us who have been here today. I want to tell my friend Claudia that constructing Cameroon, we need everybody, in terms of everybody, and everybody is needed at the table of dialogue. The separatists are needed at the table of dialogue. If you ask me, even at midnight, to dialogue with them, in as much as it can bring peace to the two English-speaking regions, I will dialogue with them. So I don't look at anyone, dialoguing with anyone as a taboo. He brings his opinion, and then I will talk to him and convince him to understand that like this, we are better when we are united than when we are separated. So I want to greet all those who have watched this program once more, and to tell them that those of us of the CRM believe in one Cameroon, especially uniting with the English-speaking side of the nation. So we are calling on Bia's regime to negotiate with the English Cameroon for the one and indivisible Cameroon they have been talking of, to continue till thy kingdom come. That's the only thing we want.
Thank you very much, Sebutaga. Thank you, John Bakuru, President of Consortium. We appreciate your time equally, Mr. Otto David, security expert. We thank you very much for being there on today's program, the Pan-African Debate. Those of you who are watching and those of you who left us messages on our Facebook live page, we equally appreciate you for being there. It's been a wonderful time. Take a rendezvous and stay tuned for more programs are yours on Afrique Media. Pan-African Debate rebroadcast is yours on Monday from 3 p.m. 14 hours GMT. Until then, bye-bye from here.